It was one of the most heartbreaking moments ever shown on reality television. A son was gone, a family shattered, and yet, even in the middle of unimaginable grief, the deep cracks that had been running through this family for years were impossible to ignore. Garrison Brown's death didn't just break hearts. It exposed the emotional distance, the fractured bonds, and the uncomfortable truth that not everyone was grieving together. Hi, friends. I'm Olivia, and you're watching TLC's Sister Wives Secrets. If you're just as heartbroken, confused, or even angry about how things played out, please hit that subscribe button and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Because today, we're not sugarcoating anything. We're starting at the memorial for Garrison, a solemn day, a place where the Brown family should have stood as one. Instead, what we saw was the image of a man, Cody Brown, more out of place than ever. He showed up, yes, but not the way his children or even his former wives wanted, not emotionally, and definitely not with the sensitivity the moment demanded. He brought a film crew to a private family memorial, a moment of raw, unbearable loss, and there were cameras. Viewers could almost feel the tension just by watching the footage. Cody's presence wasn't comforting, it was uncomfortable. He looked disconnected, standing awkwardly, apart from most of his children. At one point, Logan, Garrison's older brother, reached out his hand, and Cody turned away. That one gesture, it said everything. Social media exploded. Fans were furious. Comments poured in calling Cody tone-deaf, self-centered, and painfully out of touch. Many asked why he even came if he couldn't show up fully as a father. Others called out the way he clung to Robin during the service, seated with her while the rest of the family kept their distance. For some, it felt like the final straw. For others, it was the most tragic proof yet that this family hasn't been united in a very long time. Garrison's death didn't cause the division. It revealed it, loud and clear. And the man who was once supposed to be the head of the family seemed like a stranger in the middle of it. There was a time when Cody Brown believed he was the emotional center of his family. 4 wives, 18 children, and a dream built on spiritual unity. But by the time of Garrison's death, that image had shattered. What viewers saw at the memorial wasn't just a father in pain. It was a man completely emotionally severed from the family he once led. And no matter how hard he tried to hold on to control, the disconnect was undeniable. In the days following the tragedy, Cody began to speak about his grief in a way that left many fans confused, and some even angry. In his confessionals on the show, he shared that he was seeing signs from Garrison, hummingbirds, vivid dreams, spiritual whispers. To him, it seemed like a connection, a way to stay close to the son he'd lost. But to many viewers, and even some of his family members, it didn't land that way. It felt more like spiritual bypassing than real healing, a way to avoid facing the guilt, the missed time, the choices that created so much distance between them. He wasn't the one who spent the last months of Garrison's life by his side. That was Janelle. That was the siblings who were in constant contact, who showed up, who listened. Cody, on the other hand, had grown increasingly estranged from several of his children, especially after the COVID conflicts tore them apart even further. Garrison was vocal about it. He was hurt by his father's absence, hurt by the rules, hurt by the clear favoritism toward Robin and her children. And that pain never got resolved. So when Cody sat at the memorial, not with Janelle, not near Logan or any of the other older kids, but tightly next to Robin, fans couldn't help but react. It wasn't just about proximity, it was about emotional allegiance. It looked like he had picked a side, even in mourning. He wasn't facing the family, he wasn't holding their hands, he was holding on to the one person he'd never let go of, Robin. Online, the backlash was immediate. Viewers called it performative grief. They questioned why he didn't speak more about Garrison's life, his struggles, or their relationship. Instead, much of his energy was focused inward, on how he was feeling, what he was sensing spiritually, not the raw, grounded grief people expected from a father who had just lost a child. And this isn't new. Fans were quick to point out the long history of emotional detachment Cody has shown, especially toward his older kids. Many remembered how he responded to Isabel's scoliosis surgery with a cold, dismissive attitude, how he stopped visiting certain kids during the pandemic, how he clung harder and harder to Robin's household while drifting away from everyone else. So when Cody tried to speak about dreams and signs, it rang hollow to many, because real connection isn't made in hindsight. It's made in presence. And in the most important moments, Cody simply wasn't there in the way his children needed him to be. But while Cody was spiraling, spiritually searching, emotionally retreating, Christine was doing something radically different. She was healing. Quietly, steadily, and in full view of the fans who'd followed her journey from heartbreak to freedom. In the aftermath of Garrison's passing, the contrast between Cody and Christine couldn't have been sharper, and viewers felt it. Christine didn't show up to the memorial with cameras. She didn't try to control the narrative. What she did instead was show empathy. She posted about Garrison with love, gave Janelle space to grieve without drama, and honored the moment without centering herself. And for fans, that silence spoke volumes. Because if we go back, really back, Christine's transformation didn't begin with Garrison's death. It began years ago when she finally stood up and said, enough. Enough emotional neglect. Enough spiritual manipulation. Enough of living in a family system that drained her while feeding Cody's ego. When she walked away from that marriage, it wasn't just about divorce. It was about reclaiming her voice. And now, she's thriving. Christine's been open about her new relationship with David Woolley, and fans have embraced it with open arms. She looks lighter. She speaks with joy. She's starting businesses, writing books, filming spin-offs. The woman who once stood in the shadows of a polygamist marriage is now fully in the spotlight, and not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. It's not about replacing the past. It's about choosing peace in the future. That's what makes Christine's arc so compelling. She isn't pretending the hurt didn't happen. She carries it, sure, but she uses it, turns it into fuel, into boundaries, into self-respect. And that's why people root for her. Compare that to Cody, who still seems locked in the same cycle: anger, blame, isolation. He talks about loyalty, but only when it benefits his authority. Christine, on the other hand, talks about honesty, growth, and healing, and she lives it. So in the tragic moment of Garrison's memorial, when grief stripped everyone down to their most raw selves, what we saw was the full picture: a father trapped by pride and a former wife who had broken free. And maybe that's why fans are clinging to Christine's story so tightly, because it offers hope. Proof that walking away doesn't mean failure. Sometimes it's the beginning of everything. Now let's talk about the moment that really struck fans in the gut, because it wasn't just about Cody being distant, or even about Christine rising. It was about what the memorial revealed about the state of this entire family. That one single event peeled back every layer of tension that had been quietly building for years, and it exposed everything. The sight of Cody sitting apart from most of his children, right next to Robin, wasn't just awkward, it was devastating. In that quiet room filled with heartbreak, Cody wasn't the center. He wasn't the leader. He was an outsider in his own family's grief. And no matter how much spiritual talk he sprinkled into his confessionals about seeing signs, feeling Garrison's presence, or sensing some divine connection, fans weren't buying it. Because here's the thing: people remember. They remember how he treated Garrison during COVID. The harsh words, the ultimatums, the way Cody chose rules over relationship. Viewers watched it unfold in real time, Garrison begging to be seen, to be heard. And Cody, he chose control. He cut off contact. And now, standing in the ruins of that fractured bond, he turns to visions and dreams to make sense of the loss. It felt hollow. Not because grief isn't complex, it is, but because Cody's grief looked like it was about him, not Garrison. Fans flooded social media with reactions. One comment that went viral said, "Cody is grieving a version of Garrison he never showed up for." And honestly, that hit hard. Because while the cameras showed Cody crying, they also showed him walking away from his children's outstretched hands, turning his back, literally and emotionally. And then there's Janelle, a mother grieving her son, forced to stand in that room with the man who caused so much pain, while he remained physically close to Robin and emotionally distant from the rest. The divide wasn't just emotional anymore, it was visual, symbolic. The Brown family, once the poster group for plural unity, had shattered completely. Meanwhile, Christine quietly supported from a distance, offering Janelle her love without stealing the spotlight. That's what real healing looks like. It's gentle, respectful, present. So when fans saw that dynamic play out, Cody isolated, Christine grounded, it wasn't just sad. It was clarifying. Everything that had been brushed under the rug in past seasons was now front and center. And in that moment, the show stopped being about polygamy or patriarchy. It became about accountability, about what happens when leadership becomes control and love turns into loyalty tests. And that's something viewers won't forget. Christine's story, honestly, feels like the light breaking through after a storm. And not just any storm. Years of silent suffering, being overlooked, dismissed, and pushed to the sidelines. Her decision to leave wasn't just a plot twist in a reality show. It was a revolution inside this family. And in so many ways, it's what gave this season its emotional center. Because while Cody was busy clinging to pride, to power, to the image of a father and husband he believed he still was, Christine was choosing herself. And for the first time in a long time, fans could see what joy actually looks like in this family. It looked like Christine dancing in her kitchen, laughing with her daughters, rebuilding herself, piece by piece, outside of the pain. And you guys, we need to talk about how powerful that is. Christine didn't just walk away. She rebuilt. She started a business. She found love again. And not just with anyone, with someone who actually sees her. David Woolley entered the picture and immediately offered Christine something she'd never gotten consistently in her marriage with Cody: emotional safety, support, fun. Their relationship wasn't about status or spiritual hierarchy. It was about love that felt safe and shared. Watching Christine thrive while the rest of the family crumbled wasn't an accident. It was a direct result of her stepping out of the emotional chaos and choosing a life she could actually breathe in. And the fans? They saw it. They celebrated it. Christine became something of a symbol, not just for women leaving toxic relationships, but for anyone who's ever felt like they had to shrink themselves to survive. While Cody's story spiraled into ego and estrangement, Christine's arc soared into healing and happiness. And what made it even more impactful was how she never lashed out. She didn't bash Cody in confessionals. She didn't compete for the spotlight. She just kept showing up for herself, for her kids, for Janelle, for the life she was building, and it wasn't performative, it was real. That's what made it land so hard with viewers. When Christine launched her online presence, sharing recipes, home moments, her engagement, it felt authentic. She wasn't trying to make anyone jealous, she was just living her truth. And it showed. Fans connected with that. They compared her journey with Mary's, with Janelle's. Some even pointed out how Christine's growth seemed to ripple outward, giving others in the family permission to rethink their own paths. That's what's so powerful here. This wasn't just a personal win for Christine, it was a cultural moment, showing what can happen when someone steps out of control and into clarity. Her smile, her joy, her new life, it wasn't accidental. It was earned, through heartbreak, through resilience, through finally saying, I deserve more. And in the ruins of Cody's collapsing identity, Christine's rise felt even brighter, not just because she left, but because she chose to live. So where does that leave us now? After all the heartbreak, all the silence, all the shifting alliances and empty chairs at family gatherings, what's really left behind is the emotional legacy, not just who stayed or who left, but who actually did the work to heal. Yes, Cody is grieving. That pain is real, but grief without humility, it creates distance, not closeness. Cody didn't just lose a son, he lost the trust of the people who once looked to him for emotional safety. And that's a different kind of death, the death of connection. Meanwhile, Christine didn't just move on, she healed. She felt the loss. She felt the years of being unseen, and instead of running from it, she turned that pain into fuel, into love, into a whole new version of herself. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Cody can come back from this? Is there still a path to redemption? Or has too much been broken? Can a man so wrapped in ego ever truly connect again? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. This has been Olivia, and you're watching TLC's Sister Wives Secrets. Make sure to subscribe for more truth, more healing, and more of what really happened behind the scenes.